This is the artificial intelligence voice of Tom Bilyeu narrating this pod slice summary of the Impact Theory podcast. Bilyeu and his guest, Patrick Bet-David, delve into discussing two key elements in today's society: the concept of masculinity and the importance of power in expressing individual freedom. They begin by breaking down the alarming rise in single-parent households, suggesting it has a significant impact on a child's development, with particular emphasis on boys who grow up without their fathers. Patrick points out that a father figure offers love, fear, and respect, three key elements which lead to a child's balanced development. The lack of these elements in the absence of a father figure can potentially lead to societal challenges such as reckless behavior and potential criminal activity. Patrick further shares his belief that the lack of a father figure can lead to diminished competition and motivation and lower standards, leading to a weak persona. He references a conversation with Tom Bilyeu, stating that successful people have often experienced deep, unconditional love and pain from loved ones, alongside choosing wise enemies. These cumulative experiences further their capacity to challenge themselves and strive towards their goals. A significant part of the discussion involves the topic of power, which has seemingly become a controversial topic over time. Bilyeu shares his personal experiences and confusion over the negative connotation attached to power over time, especially as he believes it's essential in the ability to accomplish significant feats in life. Bet-David contributes to this part of the discussion by referring to David Schwartz's book, Power versus Force, which discusses the 8 levels of life's progression, from shame as the first stage to enlightenment as the final stage. This progression helps individuals gain control and power over their lives. In conclusion, Bet-David highlights the fine balance between selfishness and selflessness and the influence these aspects have on achieving personal goals and success. He points out that a 70-30 mix of selfishness and selflessness can be the optimal criterion for a successful leader. This individual can inspire, challenge, and motivate others while also being a devoted family member and a visionary. In this portion of the podcast, Bet-David and Bilyeu continue the discourse on leadership, power, and the qualities of a real man. Bet-David shares an analogy to explain the types of leaders, likening them to players on a sports team. He explains that on any team, there are different types of players, the support cast, benchers, and flag carriers, but everyone cannot be the flag carrier or the top player. It's all about understanding your role and how it contributes to the overall objective of the team. Bet-David switches gears to talk about the different types of leaders, mapping it onto the political stage with references to U.S. presidents, labeling some as alphas and some as flag carriers. He uses this concept to explain people's varying propensity to handle chaos, pressure, and pain. He uses the example of Churchill during World War II as an alpha leader, highlighting how he rose to the occasion during a crisis despite being highly disliked. They both discuss the challenging aspects of entrepreneurship, characterizing it as a daily battle against one's mind and entropy, the universal tendency for things to move towards chaos. They agree that moving against this requires ferocity, focus, determination, the occasional need for aggression, and the courage to keep injecting energy into the system to bring order. By using examples such as Churchill and Michael Jordan, Bet-David emphasizes the distinction between audacious leaders and others. He suggests that audacious leaders have the ability to multiply their efforts and handle adversity more effectively. He argues that such leadership, the ability to run through walls and intense determination to ensure the completion of a task, isn't for everybody. The discussion then steers towards qualities of a real man. Bet-David suggests that a real man should inspire a level of fear and respect, hinting at an inherent strength or power that doesn't necessarily have to be openly exhibited. He related this to the art of jiu-jitsu, where the goal is not to instigate a fight, but to deter aggression through the implicit understanding of one's capabilities. Bet-David delves deeper into the concept of power, drawing a distinction between actual strength and the outward display of it. He uses the analogy of a viral video where a father discourages a young man from starting a fight, not by outright aggression, but by showing potential power and superiority. He argues that the ability to instigate fear is an outgrowth not of belligerence, but of the underlying understanding of one's capabilities. The attention turns to family dynamics, with Bet David touching upon the value of having a respected and feared figure within a family. He asserts that the absence of such a figure often leads to instability, conflict, and misuse of power. He likens this to the power hierarchies within the broader societal and political realms. The discussion deepens with the entry of concepts such as nervous aggression and meekness, their relevance and power dynamics and the segments of society playing into it, drawing on Jared Kushner's perspective on former U.S. President Donald Trump. Bet David and Bilyeu unpack the impact of unpredictability in power narratives. The conversation further examines the implications of societal perceptions about masculinity and strength, emphasizing the need for displaying and possessing actual power instead of nurturing the weaker aspects. The current political and social climate, according to them, carries the risk of a potential war, and the collective responsibility must be to reduce the temperature rather than ramp it up. Amplifying the point is a reference to Winston Churchill, whose audacity and courage set a model. Churchill, despite his flaws, made strategic efforts to restore his reputation after a major Navy error during World War I. In the view of our two speakers, such courage was admirable, and there is value in men mustering similar courage, addressing their shortcomings, and rising stronger. The discussion ends on the note that the preservation of a secure environment often rests on the persona of strong leadership. In this segment of the podcast, Bilyeu and Bet David reflect on the importance of having a clear value system, the concept of earning respect, and the necessity of maintaining personal standards. They contend that America's founding ethos was predicated on earning one's place in society, but they believe this ethos has been eroded due to a focus on fairness. They discuss the implications of this shift, with Bet David positing that a lack of contribution to society can breed resentment and potentially dangerous behaviors. Hence, they argue for a return to the principle of earning, noting that those who take pride in their contributions to society tend to have a more legitimate sense of self-respect. The conversation segues into the value of discipline and structure, utilizing the example of effectiveness seen in the school system created by Geoffrey Canada. Tom Bilyeu speaks about Canada's approach to schooling, which involves taking underserved students and placing them in a merit-based system. He points out the transformation of these students from failing grades to high performers as a testament to the power of discipline, performance-based expectations, and implementing the correct values. The dialogue also focuses on the importance of controlled ferocity in both personal and business contexts. The emphasis is on regulating one's passionate responses, suggesting that harnessing this potency in a disciplined way often leads to effective results. Here, Bet David furthers the point of earning respect and setting standards, drawing on his personal experience with his family. He suggests an environment where rewards are tied to achievements such as reading and maintaining good grades. Despite his own lower grades in his youth, he maintains that such standards are necessary tools for instilling a sense of achievement and pride. Lastly, the hosts also discuss their concerns about the lax treatment of children in contemporary society and the detrimental effects of a lack of industriousness. Bet David details the implicit dangers of social media for naive children, further emphasizing the need for parents to be actively involved in setting standards for their children's activities, thereby embodying actual power. Throughout the podcast, Bilyeu and Bet David delve further into the idea of discipline via a military context. The conversation encompasses personal narratives and deeper explorations about the framework required to help individuals stand strong in the face of adversity. David recounts an experience in the Army, remembering how he and his young friends postured as tough guys only to meet their match in a sergeant who taught them their limitations. This instance underscores the importance of instilling discipline at a young age. And while specifically reflecting Bet David's time in the military, it also suggests broader applications in terms of learning, respect, and humility in other life facets. Further discussion leads to Bilyeu and Bet David debating about military preparation's mental and physical rigors. They dispute that without having experienced these pressures, few people can truly comprehend what it takes to prepare someone to defend their nation. Bet David emphasizes that a war situation doesn't consider contemporary issues such as climate change or virus prevention measures. The end goal is either surrender. This raw, unromanticized perspective is what they believe needs to be injected back into society to cultivate resilience and tenacity. Bet David then discusses the responsibilities of leaders and the significant influence they exert over society on a more micro level, paralleling to their personal experiences and their businesses. They reflect on how a discerning selection process while hiring greatly affects the overall efficiency and growth of operations. Using the example of hiring air managers, they share insights about refining their selection criteria as experienced, taught them the necessity of considering the candidate's proactive or reactive nature in crisis situations. The conversation shifts gears as they analyze the decision to elect political leaders. In the same rigorous process as in business hiring, they argue for a candidate's selection based on demonstrated action in chaos management, economic growth, and independence from financial obligations, which can often mean political favors. They note how this approach could direct society back to discipline, structure, and independent thinking, ultimately serving as an antidote to the contemporary focus on fairness and entitlement. To them, such leaders embody the ethos of earning they believe to be necessary for a progressive society. The example of John F. Kennedy, who was mostly funded by his father and rivals, beloved by oil people, CIA, Federal Reserve, underlines this point. Such leaders upset powerful sectors because of their independence, again, highlighting the need for a return to independence and discipline as core social and political values. The conversation now takes on the dynamics of what attracts, maintains, and loses the best talent in businesses. It also discusses how these concepts can translate to politics. The factors discussed that draw the top tier into companies include a compelling mission, novelty in the work, products that the world needs, fair compensation, autonomy, and working alongside other high-performance employees. Bet David underscores the importance of a company's incentive programs as crucial to securing elite talent. He elaborates by providing a parallel to the state level, highlighting how a state's policies can either retain or lose residents. Bet David calls attention to statistics indicating significant migration from states like California and New York to states like Florida and Texas. He attributes this trend to the more attractive incentives in the latter states, such as lower taxes and cost of living. This discussion includes high-profile examples like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, who have recently moved to Texas. Bet David explains that although these individuals have previously supported liberal causes and politicians associated with higher taxes, they found the economic incentives of less taxed states too compelling to ignore. ECO, the discussion of talent sourcing and retention in states, then dovetails into a dialogue on politics. Bet David underlines the importance of targeting the middle demographic, i.e., the independent and libertarian vote. According to him, the most impactful way to bring about change is not to try and win over the already staunch partisans, but rather focus on the independents who are open to alternative solutions. Further discourse ensues about the importance of recruiting people into politics who possess values that can resonate with voters, which, according to Bet David, is the essence of giving back. He emphasizes the responsibility of financially secure citizens to contribute to their society, either through politics, church, or nonprofit initiatives. The conversation communicates the continuous exchange of ideas and arguments about organizational management, societal transformation, and political strategy, intricately blending these areas to spotlight the impact of incentives on decision-making at individual and collective levels. The conversation now navigates through the impacts and implications of incentive programs in various fields like business and economics, and the cascading effect they have on society. In particular, Bet David suggests a core issue with America's current status is its incentive program, explaining that it has significantly influenced societal changes such as an increase in single mother births and a high divorce rate. Driving this argument, Bet David points out how the more the government prints money, the wealthier the rich become, as their wealth is often tied up in assets and equities. This wealth imbalance is echoed in real estate prices and a possible reverse market crash. While lower interest rates could drive market indices higher, Bet David warns this isn't because the economy is thriving, rather a mere indication of where the money's going. The discussion reveals the manifold consequences stemming from this wealth gap, manifesting in the year's most strikes and price hikes in industries like automakers and fast food chains. Bet David deciphers the socioeconomic impacts of these occurrences, notably highlighting the average consumer's woes who eventually bear the brunt of these changes. Additionally, Bet David and Bilyeu engage in a conversation about the transformation of values, reflecting on personal anecdotes and their experiences working with various demographics. They both agree on the core principle of self-empowerment, with the ethos of ABO's "don't block dunks," referring to the unparalleled skill of Kobe Bryant. They promote the idea of cultivating personal strength to combat societal chaos and aligning it with measurable results to make a real, tangible impact. They extend their dialogue to organizational culture, emphasizing the necessity of toughness in maneuvering through the challenges of the world. Both participants argue in favor of cultivating strong values within individuals and fostering a culture that amplifies those values to make a significant societal contribution. In the book, they discuss the fascinating concept of choosing 8 FOs that fuels your drive is underscored. They suggest that having a long-term adversary can be a potent motivational force. The conversation instills that making a substantial impact involves inevitably making enemies, citing Elon Musk's endeavors as a guiding example. Thus, they urge the audience to channel their opposition not towards defeat, but towards achieving remarkable feats. Of course, the discourse between Bilyeu and Bet David dives deeper into the importance of knowing your motivators and pinpointing your foes. Bet David deliberates on prominent figures like Elon Musk and acknowledges their relentless drive, crediting it to them having found a strong motivator. He suggests that Musk might be driven by a series of rejections or perhaps the disapproval of his father, something that isn't specifically known by the public. The subject matter then switches to an emphasis on identifying who the real enemy is. Bet David postulates that the real enemies are not those who challenge you or raise your standards, but those who encourage poor habits and complacency. He expresses a sense of regret towards those who chose the wrong enemies and forfeited potential opportunities, assuming that they might now live in remorse of their decision. The conversation segues into the topic of setting tangible goals, through sharing his experiences of setting goals and business planning with his team. Bet David underscores the importance of emotional rewards over materialistic ones, indicating that the pursuit of fulfilling these emotional elements often results in high tolerance for pain and setbacks. Bet David and Bilyeu continue to explore the relationship between motivation and enemy, with Bet David affirming that the endurance of trials is usually inspired by a deeply seated desire to prove one's enemy wrong. Reflecting on personal experiences, Bet David recollects moments where he had received genuine admiration from his parents, expressing how monumental and emotionally charged these moments were. Yet the highlight of his narrative was about achieving self-recognition. In his words, the ultimate victory is when you can truthfully tell yourself. He goes on to emphasize that such self-awareness and self-respect can't be achieved without the right enemy to motivate you and push you through. The enemy, in this case, can be any challenging situation, a contra view, or a person that triggers a strong desire in oneself to prove it wrong and overcome it. With their experiences and anecdotes, Bet David and Bilyeu illustrate that having the right of foes can be the most potent catalyst for substantial personal and professional growth.